So once again, parents, I'd like you to come up with 5 of your top values. Those values will be entirely for the 2 of you to make sure that you're on the same page and that you're working towards the same goals. These can be great for a marriage or a partnership and ought to be something that you revisit as frequently as you need to make sure that you're all on the same page. The next portion of this is to invite your kiddos into the conversation and asking them to use this word bank of values that I'll provide for you to pick out the values that mean the most to them. You may find that some of the values all match up because that's what you've set up in the first place, even though you might not have talked about it before. And then they might pick some that seem a little irksome to you, and that's good, that's growth. So we'll use the values that they pick in conjunction with the values that maybe line up for you too. And as we work with these values, you'll be able to talk about them in that more fluid way, like I mentioned before. And you'll be able to tie into how to use the values that you've already chosen to help your kiddos grow in their values that they've chosen. We ask them to choose the values that they want to choose so that we can get buy-in from them. Instead of you just being the power dominance, in this way, you're inviting them into, this is how we want to shape our family, and this is who we're going to be in the future. So I'd like to give you a quick scenario of how our value system is going to be challenging to dive into if we don't have it already kind of sussed out in our minds when the nervous system is hijacked. If you've got a kiddo who is really upset and is shouting, maybe throwing some stuff, maybe turning the table over or something like that, it can be really challenging to not want to just throw every kind of consequence at them that you can think of. And in that moment, some of those consequences might not line up logically with what that kid is experiencing. When that happens, believe it or not, that kid might be able to say to you, that doesn't make any sense. And now they're escalating that much further. So when we have the values kind of in the back of our mind, hanging out there, we can start to recognize something simple like safety. Let's say we're using the value of safety. And if we don't feel safe in that moment, that's the thing we can name out loud. So you might say, I don't feel safe when you're turning tables over. I think we need to take a break or a breather, and then we'll come back to this when we can sit at the table respectfully, calm, cool, and collected. Now we're back to how do we self-soothe? How do we co-regulate? Everything stops when we cannot have that co-regulation or that self-regulation. So I want to talk about the lens of safety, given that we just used this example of safety. If we are looking through whether or not we're safe, that is an absolute game changer. So I'll give you another extreme example of something I once saw. Working at a cabin of boys, one day, everybody was dysregulated because we hadn't spotted that there was some stuff happening with a few of them. And our nervous systems will reach out like with little invisible tentacles, and we can be affected by those things. So what we ended up having was a boy was threatening to break the windows. So we moved the rest of the group outside. One of the boys decided he didn't want to wear clothes anymore. And so that was happening. 2 of the other boys were antagonizing everybody who was behaving poorly to behave more poorly. And then that resulted in a kid who was throwing sticks and rocks at us. One other kiddo, as we called for some backup support to come up, climbed on top of a truck and started taking off his shirt and spinning around his head, jumping up and down. And as crisis response was asking me, so what's the big deal? And I about blew my top. He asked me this question: is everybody safe? And I took a deep breath, regulation, and I looked around and I realized everyone had somebody with them that was going to help to keep them safe so there wouldn't be any broken glass, and that there wasn't anyone who was in any danger of really being harmed. It was chaos for sure. But what we had to do was first calm ourselves down, and then we could actually address each and every one of these kiddos that's having the issue. So that story is to help you to understand that sometimes it might feel pretty chaotic in the house. The first thing that you do is find out if everybody's safe. Remove whatever isn't safe, and then we might remove the audience from the big behavior in support of the person who's going through an unmanageable amount of overwhelm at the time.